NASCAR just made a decision that shocked a lot of fans. Cleetus McFarland, one of the biggest automotive creators on YouTube, has officially been blocked from racing at Talladega. And if you only saw the headlines, you probably think this story is simple. It's not, because what actually happened at Rockingham, what drivers inside the NASCAR garage are saying, and why NASCAR stepped in when they did, tells a much bigger story about the future of the sport itself. So to understand why Cleetus can't race at Talladega, we have to go back to where this all started. Because a year ago, none of this even seemed real. Garrett Mitchell, better known to nearly 5 million subscribers as Cleetus McFarland, didn't come up through the traditional NASCAR pipeline. He didn't grow up grinding through late models or racing hundreds of short-track events. Instead, he built one of the biggest car channels on the internet by doing exactly what fans love to watch: blowing up engines, building ridiculous machines, and turning motorsports into pure entertainment. He wasn't just another influencer, he was a full-blown car culture phenomenon. But somewhere along the way, the joke about Cleetus racing NASCAR stopped being a joke. And it started with a single phone call. Ty Dillon, a Cup Series driver and the grandson of Richard Childress, had been watching Cleetus online. Like millions of others, he saw the passion, the personality, and the audience that followed him everywhere. So Dillon decided to call him, and he asked one simple question: "What's your goal?" Cleetus didn't hesitate. He told him straight up, "I love superspeedways, and one day I'd love to race in the Cup Series. The Daytona 500 would be awesome." That answer was enough for Dillon to bring the idea to Richard Childress Racing. But there was one condition. Dillon told him this project would only work if Cleetus stayed exactly who he was. No corporate makeover, no polished, sanitized version. If Cleetus was going to enter NASCAR, he had to do it as Cleetus. And that idea, merging one of the biggest automotive audiences on the internet with one of NASCAR's most historic teams, became the foundation of the deal. In early 2026, the announcement became official. Cleetus McFarland would run a limited schedule with Richard Childress Racing, competing in several races each season. Immediately, the NASCAR world split into two camps. Some people thought it was brilliant. Others thought it was ridiculous. And some of the loudest criticism came from inside the garage itself. Former driver Kyle Petty publicly questioned whether internet personalities should even be allowed to race in NASCAR. Then Kyle Busch added fuel to the debate. He pointed out how much experience most drivers have before reaching National Series racing. Denny Hamlin ran thousands of races before reaching the top level. Meanwhile, Busch joked that his own 10-year-old son had probably run more races than Cleetus. That wasn't just criticism, that was a clear message. This sport takes years, sometimes decades, to master. And a YouTuber skipping the line didn't sit well with everyone. Even Bubba Wallace's spotter, Freddie Kraft, raised concerns about Cleetus jumping into professional racing without enough experience. But Cleetus didn't run from the criticism. When reporters asked him about it before his debut, he gave a simple answer. If Richard Childress called any of those critics and offered them a ride, they would take it too. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. Finally, the moment arrived. April 4th, Rockingham Speedway. Cleetus was about to run 2 races in one day. First, an ARCA race. Then his big debut with Richard Childress Racing. And surprisingly, the first race went great. Cleetus kept the car clean, stayed competitive, and crossed the finish line 4th. His first top 5 finish in NASCAR-sanctioned racing. After the race, he became emotional. He dedicated the finish to his late friend Greg Biffle, who had tragically passed away in a plane crash months earlier. It was a rare, quiet moment in a story that had been loud and controversial. But the second race, that was where reality hit. Cleetus started near the back of the field, and almost immediately things became chaotic. Within just a few laps, he was sideways in traffic, barely saving the car. Later in the race, he spun again. Then came a speeding penalty on pit road, and another spin that brought out a caution. By the time the race ended, Cleetus finished 32nd, several laps behind the leaders. But something important happened that day. Despite the mistakes, despite the spins, he never wrecked another driver. He never destroyed anyone's race. And he brought the car home in one piece after completing nearly the entire distance. Even Cleetus admitted afterward that it was the hardest thing he had ever done. He joked that he spun 50 times and nearly died 10. But the real conversation started after the race. Inside Richard Childress Racing, the tone was honest. Team executives admitted Rockingham was a huge step up. They pointed out the team had to switch into conservation mode early just to keep the car safe. And then came a comment that suddenly made everyone pay attention. Team leadership said they wouldn't be surprised if NASCAR required Cleetus to run more races before being approved for superspeedways like Daytona or Talladega, because those tracks are the fastest and most dangerous in the entire sport. And if a driver isn't ready, things can go wrong very quickly. Other drivers weighed in. Some supported Cleetus. Justin Allgaier praised him for staying out of the leader's way. Ty Dillon defended the project and said Cleetus represented himself well. But analysts were much harsher. Some compared the move to skipping middle school and jumping straight into college. Others pointed out moments during the race where Cleetus seemed confused by basic racing terminology. Even Dale Earnhardt Jr. offered a blunt assessment. After watching Cleetus test, practice, and race, Earnhardt said he had seen enough. Enough to believe Cleetus wasn't ready for Daytona or Talladega yet. And a few days later, NASCAR made it official. Cleetus McFarland would not be approved to race at Talladega. Not yet. For now, NASCAR says he needs more experience on short tracks and in lower series before being allowed onto superspeedways. Cleetus reacted with honesty. He admitted it felt like a punch to the gut, but he also understood the reasoning. Because this isn't the end of the story. In fact, it might only be the beginning. Because while critics debate whether Cleetus belongs in NASCAR, the numbers tell another story. When he raced at Rockingham, TV ratings jumped. When he made his Truck Series debut at Daytona, viewership exploded. Millions of new fans suddenly started paying attention. Cleetus McFarland brings something NASCAR has struggled to find for years. New eyes, new fans, and new energy. So now NASCAR faces a difficult balance. Protect the integrity of the sport. Keep drivers safe, but also embrace the massive audience Cleetus is bringing with him. For Cleetus himself, the path forward is simple. More races, more experience, more learning. Because whether critics like it or not, he's not going anywhere. And if this journey continues the way it started, the day Cleetus McFarland finally rolls onto a superspeedway again might end up being one of the most watched races NASCAR has seen in years.